The Anaheim Ducks trade Trevor Zegras to the Flyers after it's been rumored for so long. Like, not specifically to the Flyers, but specifically him getting moved. This is a player that's from New York. He is a player that has a lot of friends out east, and it's a player that's now going to the Philadelphia Flyers. So the Ducks get back Ryan Poehling, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2026 fourth-round pick. So the Anaheim Ducks X page is on it, and we've got some quotes as well, specifically from GM Pat Verbeek. So Verbeek on the trade: I want to thank Trevor for his contributions and efforts over his last 6 years. While this was a difficult trade to make, we have and will continue to look at retooling our roster over the next couple of months, and this transaction is part of that process. We wish Trevor the best of luck with the Flyers. So I think there's a couple things here. One being that Trevor Zegras is not really the biggest Pat Verbeek player, so I completely understand the trade. I just think you're not getting enough value back for the player that was drafted 10th overall, also the skill set, and he's shown the point production. And sorry, I meant 9th overall in 2019. I knew he was top 10, but he was drafted at the 9th spot to the Ducks. I don't know why I thought 10, but I think if you go to that 2019 draft, number 10 was there, but Colson. So Zegras was at number 9 just after the Oilers drafted Broberg. But if you do go look at like some of his numbers, he has some good seasons under his belt. In the 21-22 season, when he was only like 21 years old, he had 61 points in 75 games. When he has a full season or close to a full season, he's been scoring 20 plus or on pace for 20 plus goals. This past season, obviously not the goal scoring that he wanted. Only played 57 games. So the last 2 seasons just been tough. There's been the injuries. I think when you look at Zegras overall, there's a player that has a lot of untapped potential still. As I said, from out east, 24 years old. He just turned 24. To me, I think these are going to be the next couple of years of growth for Zegras to be what he should be the rest of his career. I would say right now it's considered his prime. I understand all of that. I also do think that there's been conversations of like now Zegras is going to be closer to some friends as well, like Cole Caulfield out east. He's reuniting with one of his closest friends from the Ducks organization originally, which is Jamie Drysdale. So I do think there's the perspective of that. If we do go back to the Ducks page and kind of talk about some of the stuff that's coming out of the Ducks organization, I do want to kind of flip-flop here a little bit back and forth. To me, I think the Ducks valued this player. I think they valued him as a personality. I also think that he was on the cover of the National Hockey League's video game, NHL, from EA Sports. I think this was a guy that was supposed to be a lot more with the Ducks. Unfortunately, he wasn't that, and there's so many different factors there. So I think him going to Philly, like I said, with more familiarity. He also played with Cam York at the U.S. development program, so I think there's going to be familiarity with Cam York, with Jamie Drysdale, with a couple of other guys on the Flyers. And I also want to say that the Flyers might make some moves to also kind of bring that together, because I think the Flyers and Ducks are in similar situations in terms of trying to retool the roster. I think the Flyers, of course, have been trying to hit the reset on some of their style of play, where the Ducks have been through like this rebuild for so long, and I feel like finally they're kind of knocking on the door. We'll see, though. We'll see. I think John Gibson potentially being traded out is going to be interesting to me, but I think Dostal is a really good goalie, and I think that's going to be their guy. But I also wanted to look at potential next moves and next trades. So as I kind of already alluded to, I think this is a good value trade for the Flyers. I'm going to kind of turn into the Flyers conversation here, because I think this is, on the surface, this is not enough for the Ducks to get in return for a guy that has the potential he has, for how high you drafted him, 9th overall, and for I would say over the course of the last few years, you were waiting for this guy to take the jump. So I think this is kind of a steal for the Flyers in a way. Again, the Ducks do create some cap space here. I think Ryan Poehling could be a really good bottom 6 forward. You're obviously getting some cap savings here, about $5 million of cap savings. So that's a positive. But I do think the Ducks are in kind of an interesting perspective where they are trying to transition into maybe playing the Pat Verbeek style, play a little bit more of that Joel Quenneville style, which you're bringing in guys like Chris Kreider, and then, of course, having that size of guys like Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlson. So that's kind of happening with the Ducks right now. Trevor Zegras doesn't really fit that mold, where the Flyers, with Trevor Zegras. He's filling that skill set that maybe the Flyers are lacking in some aspects. Like if you look at the Flyers roster, there's so many of those like rough around the edge kind of players, whether it's Nick Delorier, Garnet Hathaway, Travis Konechny, Owen Tippett. Like there's a lot of those guys that play a certain style. Zegras is skill. You're bringing in pure skill with Trevor Zegras, and of course Michkov, which you already have. There's now some more skill set to add to that power play as well. I think that's the benefit. But what else can the Flyers add, I think, is the big question. And I think if you look at maybe something that I have here, I kind of want to bring it up. So I think there's a couple moves the Flyers can make. I think they're going to look at the free agent pool to see, because they have some flexibility for sure. But this one for me is interesting with Utah. A couple things here, and I had it in my notes here. Sean Couturier, once upon a time, played for Drummondville in the QMJHL. And funny enough, I always try to look for these connections, because to me, if a guy's struggling in his career or needs a change of scenery, that's why right when I looked at the Trevor Zegras trade, I was like, oh yeah, I remember there's a couple connections with Philly. Let's look it up right now. Boom. Guy like Jamie Drysdale, which I already knew they had the close friendship in Anaheim, but Cam York. Cam York played on the U.S. development program in the same program as Trevor Zegras. So there's a couple of connections with the Flyers, but anyways, Sean Couturier, Drummondville, QMJHL, won a championship also. Then the following 2 years, who was his coach? Mario Duhamel. I don't know the relationship there, but sometimes we want to put connections together and seeing how a player can play. Well, the assistant coach on Utah Hockey Club right now in Utah Mammoth is Mario Duhamel. So we'll see, but I think he is still going to be back with the team. I'm just trying to search up here. As far as I can see, Mario Duhamel is going to be back. I don't see anything alluding to the contrary. So it kind of made me think, well, Utah's looking for some veterans, and there's been a lot of rumors around Krause and Michelli being traded, that it just hasn't worked out with those guys. So I was thinking maybe the Flyers can give Utah some veteran presence. Delorier, I know the Flyers love Delorier, but you don't need so many of those guys. You already have Garnet Hathaway. He scored 10 goals last year. I think that presence is already there on the Flyers. You bring in some more skill, and Krause has got some size. I think you can fill out your bottom six with those guys, or even middle six. And then another one that's really interesting for me is a trade with LA. And that would be seeing Jordan Spence and Alex Turcotte to the Philadelphia Flyers. And I go, wait a second. Alex Turcotte. He was on the U.S. development program with Cam York and Trevor Zegras. So in terms of a next trade and a trade partner, I think the LA Kings are a perfect trade partner for the Philadelphia Flyers. Right now, the LA Kings, it looks like they might lose Gavrikov in free agency. Zamula, 6'3", mid-20s. There was some rumors that other teams were interested in Zamula, and the Flyers were willing to entertain some offers. So I'm thinking maybe Zamula. If the Flyers don't see the fit with Pelche, with all the wingers that they have, whether it's Forster, Brink, go down the list, and then if they make a trade like that with Utah, I think Pelche could maybe be flipped to the Kings. The Kings would definitely give him an opportunity. And then add some draft capital, because Jordan Spence has some good value still as a right shot defenseman. Turcotte, I mean, he hasn't found a consistent time in the NHL, but when he has, like, he put up decent production. Like, in a full season, he put up like a 15-plus goal season. So I think for Turcotte, he's got that potential still. He's at a low cap hit. And as I said, sometimes it helps bringing in the familiarity. And I think that could be a scenario. And Turcotte's natural position is center. He's been playing wing with the Kings because the Kings have so many centers. Well, funny enough, if the Flyers trade Sean Couturier, they have less centers than they already have. And that's already a problem. So maybe Turcotte can get an opportunity to play his natural position, which would be center. And Zegras and Turcotte, former like teammates or peers with the U.S. development program, boom. So this is kind of a mock roster in terms of like what they could do. Maybe they sign like a fourth liner like Curtis Lazar, who also played on the World Juniors with Lawson Krause, if you were to acquire that guy, but also played on the Calgary Flames with Garnet Hathaway. So I always look for those connections. Curtis Lazar, once upon a time, played with Garnet Hathaway there as well. So I think there's a connection there. The defense, if you were to acquire Jordan Spence, but if you weren't, Travis Sanheim, Jamie Drysdale, Cam York, and Rasmus Ristolainen, if you don't touch that, I think that's a really solid top 4. That's kind of what you finished with last year when everyone was healthy. I do think that's a good top 4 to grow with. And Nick Seeler as your number 5. And we've seen Seeler obviously up in the defense group with the Flyers, with Drysdale, with Sanheim, with those guys. He's been playing heavy minutes. So I think that's a really good top 5. And then you decide on the 6-7 punch for the Flyers. But the goaltending is probably where it's at. I don't think you change that. But the forward group is the big question for me on what the Flyers are going to do. And I think maybe making some moves like that, guys that need to change the scenery. I like the Zegras addition because of the offensive ceiling that I think is still untapped. So massive, massive, massive steal for the Flyers. In terms of like what they're doing, a 2nd and 4th round pick, they're okay with giving that up. And Ryan Poehling for them, 3rd or 4th liner, they're okay with giving that up. Trevor Zegras, 1 more year at 5.75. If it doesn't work out, if his ceiling's not as high for this upcoming season, maybe you sign him for a bridge deal and it's cheap on the cap. Or it works out great and he's in your top 6. There's a lot of reports also out there and rumors that the Flyers don't even know if Zegras is going to be the natural center for them. So he's played wing, he's played center. The Ducks had problems with his matchup game and consistent 5-on-5 play, and obviously the health status for him to be a full-time center. But we'll see if Zegras can find that full potential as the center with the Flyers. If not, maybe as a wing. And then again, the Flyers would maybe have to keep Couturier or find other center options out there. So anyways, thanks for going through this, guys. But I just think this is an interesting situation for the Flyers. Definitely the higher ceiling win for them. The Ducks, I would have liked to see something better come back to them. Just getting draft capital and Poehling. To me, Pat Verbeek, you got to do some stuff in free agency and more trades. Like, this is one of those ones where, like, okay, you acquired Kreider, yes. This trade has got to be, like, a precursor to a couple other moves because you didn't really get anything valuable back for the Ducks trying to do something for this season. So that's my only problem with this for the Ducks. I think this is the higher ceiling win for the Flyers.